From Significant, this is Crack It in an Hour.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crack It in an Hour from Significant. I'm Simon.
I'm Jessie.
I'm Roman.
And today, as you know, like every other episode, we take on a big, small, whatever you want to call it, type of problem and try and crack it literally in an hour. Today, Roman, you're hosting, right?
I am.
Amazing. Here we go.
I can't wait.
I could tell you there's been a sense of, I wouldn't say anxiety, but there's been a sense of importance to this week's topic. You were running around.
I mean, let's say why. It's because we decided we would do it 2 days ago. And
correct.
I didn't have a topic.
Factually correct.
So I was like, okay, I gotta find a subject. I do have a list, but obviously my list is like, oh, do I really like it? Yes, I do. No, I don't.
Nice.
Oh, yes, I do. No, I don't. I do have a topic. Yeah.
I like
and
it.
a subject that's a little close to home. So yeah, I am going to start the clock.
All right.
Here we go.
Oh boy.
So the subject, I'm going to say it out right now. We've talked actually about it a couple of times randomly. And then let me just give a bit more context as to the levers we can pull, the data, etc.
Okay. Before you say it, Jessie, what's going through your head right
I'm
now?
nervous.
Why are you nervous?
I don't know.
I have an idea of what I think it might be, but please
Okay, go for
ahead.
it. Just one guess.
Sugar consumption.
No.
Okay.
So last time I was about sleep. I can't always be like the boring guy about like health. This one is about thank you for like the
really pigeonholing you.
Yeah, building my image publicly. The overall subject is how could we market the city of LA to help with economic growth post fires?
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So here comes the data dump and fact dump.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
And I think some of it might give us maybe an understanding of the levers we can pull. We'll see. So first of all, some facts, right? So we know LA is famous global city, global cultural, economic powerhouse, entertainment industry, very diverse population, iconic landmarks, tourism's a big deal. The fires have been like devastating.
Mm-hmm.
Human lives were lost, over 40,000 acres destroyed, thousands of homes and businesses. And the repercussions, is that how you say it? Repercussions economically are pretty profound, right? So data from the UCLA Anderson School of Management, total property and capital losses could range between 76 and 130 billion.
Oh my God.
Which is like a big range. But
yeah.
That's the way it is.
It's a lot of money.
Insured losses estimated to 45 billion. Almost 0.5 decline, like 0.48 decline in county level GDP, which is pretty big for this year, 2025.
Wow. Just because of the fires.
Which is about 4.6 billion. Total wage loss of close to 300 million for local businesses and employees in the affected areas, right? So the main areas, the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. So we're going to talk about, I think, what's needed to recover. We're going to talk about maybe rejuvenation of the local economy and overall marketing of the city of LA. And before we do that, I'm going to go a little deeper into what drives the city economically, right?
Yes,
and this is where the
Please
levers
do.
come in.
This is great.
Right? So let's look at the current landscape to kind of understand what we can play with. So you've probably heard me talk about, I personally think LA is at a crossroads. And here's why. And I finally did a bit of digging on the data just to substantiate it. So the following intel comes from an independent, nonpartisan research group called the Public Policy Institute of California. And let's talk about the changes that's happened in the California economy and specifically LA in the last 5 years. So in the year of 2024, there were 45,000 jobs added in LA County. That's 1% growth. One thing that that caught my eye, and we're going to talk about it in the marketing angle, is like there's pessimism. There was a study.
Yes.
There was a study done in a statewide survey in December, and Angelinos were pessimistic. That's the term used. That's not mine. About their economic well-being. 56% expecting bad times ahead financially. I think the pessimism term is really interesting.
Yeah.
We should talk about it because literally LA is built on optimism.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Job growth was slower than the years immediately after the pandemic. 2024 was a better year for LA than 2023. I have numbers. We don't need to know the details. But despite adding jobs in 2024, the county's growth has significantly lagged behind the state's growth in recent years. Let's talk about the sectors, and then we're going to pause.
Great.
Healthcare, fast growth. I found that really interesting. Maybe we can talk about why, maybe not. But like the fastest growing sector in LA County is healthcare. The much smaller private education sector grew at a similar rate in the state. We're talking like 3.3% versus 2.8%. The information sector, which is Hollywood and tech, mostly Hollywood, grew slightly in 2024. And this is where it gets interesting, and that was my theory all along. This change is notable for two reasons. The decline elsewhere in California contributed to the slowing statewide labor market in 2024. But importantly, LA experienced massive losses in information jobs during the pandemic and again in 2023. That was a loss of close to 120,000 jobs. And now we're talking recoveries of like 2,000 increments.
Yeah. Like, so it's never come back.
It's never come back.
Yeah.
And that's ginormous. And I could pause here. I'm going to read through the rest very quickly. Leisure and hospitality, fifth largest sector in LA. And the other couple sectors we could talk about, manufacturing, aerospace is an interesting one.
Is it as big as it used to be? Because like LA, we used to have a huge aerospace industry.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And my I don't have the data. My assumption is like, SpaceX is probably helping now.
Right.
Even though they're relocating, they still have substantiate. What word am I looking for? Anyway, big employment in LA. So mostly services, a bit of manufacturing, a bit of hospitality, but I think the job loss in Hollywood in the last 5 years is a massive driver of that problem. So
especially the pessimism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To wrap up the intro, post-pandemic's been a disaster. You add the fires to that, and the cost of the fires and the cost of rebuild. My personal theory is LA's at a crossroads, and in the next 2.5 years before the Olympics, we're either going to see one of the most beautiful American comeback stories that the world wants to see, or LA is going to be relegated to a tier 2 city.
Interesting. So
how do we contribute to the most beautiful American comeback story? How do we help with that? Like if you're an employee at either California government or the city of LA and you have to strategize about making a comeback, what do you do?
Shit, this is a good one.
So, are we talking, can I ask, are we trying to build the story of, or are we actually trying to economically rebuild LA?
I think we have to start with the latter and then talk about the marketing of it.
Yeah.
I think we have to start talking about the levers and then get to, all right, what is policy worthy? What's marketing worthy? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Because you can talk about like post fires, what needs to happen for those neighborhoods to be rebuilt, and there's a lot.
That's what I was going to say,
because a lot of literature
to me, I was
policy.
like, we could have an hour-long conversation about the difficulties of building in LA, and I don't know if that's the best use of this.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We can just be like, okay, that needs to happen.
Like building needs to happen. It needs to be easier to build in LA, right?
Permitting is a massive
all that
thing.
Stuff. I have a friend in development, and he always goes on about how impossible it is to build in LA. So like that one. But again, I'm not going to be able to have a very in-depth conversation about that.
But so like if we have two buckets, maybe I'm oversimplifying, but for the sake of like cracking something that big in 52 minutes, there's like a lot more money needs to flow back to LA.
We need money flowing in. You need jobs flowing in. You need it easier for people to live in LA.
And then how do you market it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I do want to touch on one thing about the money flowing in. I think without entertainment coming back to LA, I don't think LA is coming back.
So are you
Hot
saying
take.
the only way to do it is to have entertainment come back
Is
to LA?
the first inevitable step.
Because I know like Newsom is talking about sort of like starting to build credits and stuff like that for entertainment, because like it's been insane, right? Like I know people who moved to Atlanta who are working really good production jobs because they can get more work there. Life is cheaper. And they were traveling all the time there anyways. Like people I know still in production, I went out with a producer from a big studio yesterday. He has 4 movies happening. Not one of them is happening in LA, and nothing on the calendar for this year that he sees is going to happen in LA. Like it's just not happening anymore.
This is probably a naive question, but you're making an assumption about, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I have no idea that without entertainment coming back, there's pretty much no chance of LA coming back. My question is, does that assume that entertainment itself isn't evolving?
That's a good question.
Sorry, keep talking about. My brain is not
I mean,
building the bridge with the evolution of entertainment.
It assumes that production jobs are created the same way they used to be created. They're at the same scale. They require the same in-person efforts. I mean, I don't want to make this a podcast about AI because God knows there's enough conversations about that. But is production itself going to be changing so much anyway that you can't rely on what we used to think about as production and entertainment in LA? The answer could still be entertainment, but I think you also have to think about what the future of entertainment looks like and how revenue within the entertainment space is going to be, and jobs are going to be created and invented and evolved. Because I think if we just assume that it is the old world of production, then you're also dead in the water.
No, I agree.
You're correct. My small but is those jobs went somewhere. Like I agree with Simon, like Georgia, New Mexico, Mexico, foreign productions beyond Mexico, like multiple states have seen what Georgia did and how it helped their economy.
It's
like
the
Florida,
short-term and long-term planning.
Yeah,
I mean, the short term is you want,
in the meantime,
the traditional, shall we say, quote unquote, traditional production jobs that are still happening right now. You want to bring them back here as fast as possible. But long-term, we can't assume.
I think you're right. But also 120,000 jobs. This is a whole city.
Yeah.
It's a town.
120,000 jobs is indisputable, but I want to touch on something you said, Jesse, that I think is important. If you look at the main entertainment franchises in America right now, I would argue they're tech companies. And tech companies are really, really great at innovation, at doing things differently. You know, we can discuss all of that for another time, but just broad strokes. So I think what I also take from you is it's not just like, oh, we'll come back and we'll run production exactly the same way they would. I actually think a lot more of the entertainment jobs in the future are going to be more tech jobs. Do you know what I mean? And that's the question, which is how do you, it's a little bit of like, I'm going to take a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. A, how do you make it a little bit easier to do production in the meantime? But B, how do you make LA a great place to innovate in entertainment, to attract that and keep that sort of level of entertainment and careers in this place, if that makes sense?
I think it's really interesting. And now we're obviously, I mean, as always, we're getting into subjective points of view. None of us are LA natives.
Nope.
So we all have different perspectives on LA, and I have a million other questions and thoughts on that I want to get into at some point. But you use the word innovative. And personally, I've never considered LA, like when I think innovation and cities of high experimentation innovation, I don't think of LA that way. I never did. I could be, again, I could be 1,000% incorrect on that, but I'm talking about,
it's all part of their brand.
It's never been part of the brand. As an outsider who
Roman's pushing
like
back gently.
I think each of us probably experienced a different brand of LA and what drew us here. But I'm just saying, I think innovation and experimentation is driving so many sectors these days. And I wonder if the spirit of innovation, it is alive here, but is it as core to the brand as it needs to be in order to grow in the future?
I mean, I think creativity and innovation sometimes can be used interchangeably.
They're bedfellows, for sure.
And LA is, to me, one of the top 5 creative capitals in the world.
I agree with that.
LA was built on creativity,
100%,
optimism, and innovation.
Yeah.
Like, some guys were completely like, the doors were closed for them to innovate in a new sector. And they were like, sounds good. We're going to drive west to where people are like open-minded and let's fucking do it. And they created a city. And like, it's an amazing story of entrepreneurship, optimism, creativity, and innovation.
Yeah.
But I think that part, I 100% agree, but I wonder, and maybe we're jumping too far ahead into the brand part, but I think this, what did you say? You said creativity, innovation, and optimism,
and
right?
Entrepreneurship.
And entrepreneurship. If those are the 4 dials, if those are the 4 brand pillars of Los Angeles, I would say over the last couple of years, optimism and creativity have felt like they dialed up, and entrepreneurship and innovation felt dialed down. In terms of, I'm not saying in terms of reality and truth, I'm saying in terms of brand and perception and the way that LA is perceived. And I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of people that have different perceptions of
sorry,
LA.
I didn't call that brand pillars. I think
I'm calling them
this is just a history.
I know. I'm saying
talking 20th century history. Obviously, I'm not talking.
We're not talking about the founding of Hollywood or anything like that.
I'm just saying, if in a sense you take the origin story and look at those as sort of the key, the essence of LA. I called them brand pillars for the sake of the conversation.
And to be clear, because there's going to be lots of eye rolls at what I said, this is not even the origin stories of LA. I'm aware of what happened before Hollywood in LA, and this is actually the roots and the culture of LA is what happened before Hollywood. But for the sake of this conversation, I do think LA can be attached to the terms creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship.
Optimism.
I think let me just take a quick, keep talking for a second, Simon. Sorry. Look at LA just the last, I've been here for 12 years.
Yeah.
Right. And in the US for 15. Since I got to the US in 2010, LA's gone through already quite a few phases. Like in 2008, 2010, it's like the world is curious about LA.
Mm-hmm.
Artists and creatives from outside of LA, non-entertainment sectors come to LA.
Yeah.
There's the famous Moby piece in the New York Times in 2013. Who's like a New Yorker, diehard, saying, here's why I'm moving to LA, where it was like just the entertainment city.
Yeah.
I know Moby's an entertainer, but still, like, it was just Hollywood and it went beyond it. It became a hub for tech, fashion, design, architecture. Of course, entertainment's always been the case. Aerospace has been a big one. There's lots of innovation and creativity beyond entertainment for about 10 years. And then suddenly the pandemic hits. Arguably one of the best cities to be in during the pandemic, because like blue skies and weather lets you be outside. But then post-pandemic, massive struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that's linked to multiple things, including, and I'm going a different direction here for a second, the weird social fabric of LA. Or the weird, let me put it this way, the weird approach to human relationships in LA. Like LA is it's the only places I've been in the world where social space is bigger than anywhere. Meaning, like, if you approach someone you don't know, less than 3 feet, they're going to be like, who's that weirdo? Like, it is. Like, go anywhere, even go to New York.
Right.
Like, go anywhere else, even if it's not just a density thing, but obviously it contributes to it. And so there's a weirdness to this, to building social relationships. So post-pandemic, it made it even harder. After you allowed people to just log themselves in and do nothing, they were like, why the fuck would I go back out? Like, it's easier than ever to book a fancy restaurant in LA.
Right.
That's a sign of there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So I am just intentionally going multiple directions to talk about what the good things are, what the challenges are, And do we need to go? How do we go back to the good things and what made LA LA?
I want to go back to what made LA LA thing, but the other thing, like I don't disagree with you on that psychological thing. I think, and like this is not to be the sort of like meat and potatoes boring guy, but like I think the COVID also like ripped apart some of the industries and reasons for being in LA, right? Like literally right after that, everyone was like, I'm just saying that to say it, like production value doesn't matter that much. Why do I have to like shoot in LA? You know, wait a second. I don't need to sit in an edit bay. I'll just do it over Zoom. Okay. Now all those hotels are suffering. Like there was literally like all these things got the wind knocked out of it. Going a step further too, what also happened, compounding it, was real estate got bonkers. So suddenly now it's like, yeah, it is a nice place to be in LA. LA is a great place to be, ... if you can afford it. But like even Joshua Tree, which is like literally the desert. And I love Joshua Tree. I have nothing against Joshua Tree at all. But like if you looked at how much it just spiked during that time because it was considered cheaper than LA. You know what I mean? Like everyone was trying to get out of LA for very pragmatic reasons, which was you didn't need to be there for work anymore and it was expensive. So I just want to go back to that. But the thing I want to go back to before that, which was that moment of when that, you know, let's say early 2010s, when people were suddenly getting excited about LA, what do you think was the momentum that created that?
It's a good question. This is not there's no backing behind my theory. I think it's the realization of the creative potential of this untapped creative potential of the city beyond entertainment.
Right.
What you're touching on real estate, affordable housing, like
it was still cheaper.
You see the expansion of like neighborhood, like Williamsburg in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
What happens first? The artists go there, and then it becomes interesting. Interesting. I think that's what happened in a way across a variety of industries, and then tech came. Yeah,
and tech just.
But it was a good thing at the beginning.
Oh, to be clear, I'm not. It
was really good,
but it takes it another level.
It brought then there's too much money, but there's that moment where it's really interesting because you have creativity in tech and in all those other sectors that I mentioned. Yeah. And then suddenly it is a true creative capital of the world. It's not just the entertainment capital of the world. Yeah. I think like that decade, 2010 to 2020, like the people I know who live in Asia and Europe were like, LA is so cool. You see what I mean? LA was like the place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It no longer is.
No.
And so there's so much.
Yeah. Jesse ponders, staring off into the distance.
Yeah. I mean, my head is spinning in 1,000 different directions, but I keep thinking about how I was very anti-moving to LA. Almost 8 years ago, I had no interest in living here. And I remember asking people like, well, what do you love about LA? And this 8 years ago, literally the only response I could get was the weather. And I remember being like, I mean, I'm a summer girl as much as any, but I'm that's not enough for me. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I asked probably close to 20 people who like had either lived here, currently lived here. And it was like, yeah. And I'd be like, well, but what about this? And what about that? And they'd be like, yeah, no, that part does suck. But the weather.
Yeah.
And I was always like, that's not enough. And the funny thing is, if you ask me now, if I love LA, I would say yes.
I do too.
But if you asked me why, I would struggle to give you an answer.
Let's talk about that. Why do you love LA, Simon?
It's the easiest place to live I've ever lived. That's mine.
Why is it?
The weather's great. I don't mean to like, I know that's thing. I have 3 kids. So there's like, we have like a neighborhood feel while also still being in a city. And I mean, I know that's not everyone's experience in LA, but I'm certainly lucky enough to have that. I find that people here that are in my community are very friendly. And it has a really, really good balance of feeling like you're in the middle of enough, but not stuck in it.
And Roman, how do you feel about LA?
I love this place. And I think like many cities, it's mismarketed. That's why I wanted to talk about this. I think, and there's another one I want to talk about at some point coming up in a future pod, as you know.
Yes.
To me, LA is freedom. Every day I have the feeling I'm driving a car for the first time.
Yeah.
Not when I'm driving, but just in that city. It's like there's a sense of freedom here.
Yeah.
And obviously I grew up in Europe. It's different. I know I say that all the time, but we're all like, that's what is interesting about those conversations and our partnerships. Like we come from very different cultural backgrounds, right? It's everyday freedom.
Yeah.
That's one thing. A second one is creativity, I think is real. I've met really interesting people here over my decade here. Like really interesting people.
I notice that a lot when I go to different places.
Yes. I think when you know, people, entertainment, whatever, superficial. No. Super interesting. And also beyond entertainment.
Beyond entertainment, but even in entertainment, hustlers. Like I love hustler. I love hustler culture.
It's very, very entrepreneurial and super creative. And the intersection of entrepreneurship is creativity is what I love.
Totally.
Right. And so I'm stimulated by the people I meet.
Yeah.
And then, quality of life is one. Yeah. Not just the weather. It's the quality of life.
It is.
And I think it's like, I describe LA, it's when, some people are like, oh, I'm moving to the US, but I don't know if I should go to like expats only think about New York, San Francisco, and LA, right? And I'm like, well, if you are focused on a specific business vertical that is mostly New York, and that's 100% your focus in life, not your family, not quality of life, business, go to New York.
Yeah.
But LA is the targets expect more, pay less of a city. It's the intersection of both business, creative business opportunity and quality of life. And that's one of the best places in the world to do that, if not the best. If you want a better quality of life, I can name like 10, 100 places in the world.
There's
go to an island in Thailand. Your quality of life will be fucking amazing.
There's probably 5 like within a 2-hour drive.
Even that. If you want better just business, I can name 4, 5, 6 cities. Well, you'll have better business. But if you want the intersection of both, it's happening here.
Yeah.
Nowhere else.
Yeah.
Sydney, too far away, too isolated.
Market too small. Brazil, Rio, the same. I'm talking about beach cities because very often that's where you have good quality of life. Mountain cities, usually too small. So that's why I love it.
That is interesting. I know now, we're sort of on the subject of the marketing of LA, the perceptions of LA. But I mean, we were literally just talking about this earlier today, but in a culture that has spent so much time talking about striving for work-life balance, and that conversation has come from many other industries. How do you achieve work-life balance? It kind of is the definition of LA if you embrace what LA has to offer.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because you often think of it as something that you have to find yourself or create within your life versus how your environment can actually support that or foster that in your life.
Totally.
Like instead of fighting for it, instead of, kind of clawing your way upstream, it sort of exists here, which is interesting.
It is for sure. This one's interesting because I don't know how to explain it, but in any city at any point in time in my life where I've gotten excited by the city, the way I always feel it is I'm like, oh, there's like a juice here. There's like a feeling. It's like, and it's hard to explain and I don't know what it is. And it's a little bit of that combination of stuff is happening. There's opportunity. There's interesting people and everyone's sort of I don't know what you'd even say, in a weird way, it's it's not all figured out yet, but everyone's really excited to figure it out. And I think even when you were talking about LA, over a decade ago, it feels like that was that sort of magic combination that I think really gave it that moment. And I think those are the Those are the things that I think drive a lot of cities on the rise, right? Is like that sense of like juice. And I'll be honest with you, youth. Like I think the thing about LA that's gotten very difficult over the last little bit is like, it is hard to move here in your early 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you lose that, man, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I agree. That's really big.
You know?
But usually to describe that juice that you were talking about, I think that if you go back to the history of the place, then you understand why. Like the energy you feel in New York is like, you look at the history of New York.
Totally.
You're like, okay, I get it. Like someone once told me, and I've never found the theory behind it. So he's like, a guy who lived in New York for like 20 years, he was like, I think it's linked to the geology. And I was like, oh, interesting. He's like, yeah, there's something about what New York is built on. I'm like, okay. I'm not sure I buy that one, but I do buy the history of a place.
Yeah.
The history of LA's optimism, history of New York is like immigrants, entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You can feel it today. It's still the same thing. The history of Hong Kong is like a trading platform for like this whole part of the world. It's still that today. So if you go back to the history, you can, to me, that's one way to understand that juice you're talking about. And that energy is like just reading a bit about the place. You're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even centuries after, it still makes sense.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask the opposite question, which is if you ask people, if the answer to what do you love about LA is usually weather, and we're trying to go deeper on that. You talked at the beginning about pessimism. And now I'm like, okay, when I ask people, what don't you love about LA? I hear it's expensive. So
and traffic.
But it has to be deeper than expensive and traffic to be driving an actual shift from optimism to pessimism among the people who live here and have loved it. So maybe drawing on, maybe it's a better question for me to answer because I didn't love it here. But like, what do you think is driving the pessimism?
I can give you my take. And again, it's like this city went through an existential crisis post-COVID. Like, I honestly think that, like, it was like, it's what you said. You had 200,000 jobs just disappear, and not just 200,000 jobs, 200,000 jobs in the industry people come here to try and make it in. So right away, you had the soul of what people wanted this place to be about ripped out of it. And my thing about that is this city struggled with that whole post-COVID thing in a way that I don't think a lot of other places did, because it fundamentally changed why you came here. That's kind of like a lot of what I think the pessimism roots from, frankly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's got to be, because it's the optimism is coming from that industry. That industry is like in crisis.
I have another take. It goes against what you said at the beginning around, I forget how you described it, but that people here don't like to have their personal space invaded, and COVID sort of made that easier for people to be like, great, don't talk to me. That might be true, but I also feel like so many people started to crave, it sounds very cliche, but crave a sense of community that had been lost in a sense. And it's the thing that I think it lacks as a city. The community exists within your circles, within your social circles. And part of that is geographic layout. Part of that is, I think it's a very neighborhood driven city. I mean, most big cities are, your neighborhoods kind of drive the city. But, you talk about New York and you can talk about Brooklyn, and you talk about both of those places with the same sort of fervor. But I think you talk about Silver Lake, you talk about West Hollywood, you talk about Santa Monica, and those things feel very different than talking about Los Angeles. So right. I feel like, there were so many reasons that people moved away from the city people could work remote, people looked for cheaper housing, all of that. But I think a big part of it was also the craving of a sense of community. And I think the social fabric of LA lacks that feeling, which I think starts to diminish energy. Because I think we create, I don't want to get like
Are you
too
saying this all
woo-woo.
happened after COVID?
I think COVID amplified what already existed in this city. And I think that I believe momentum is built in community. Like when you are suddenly like, there's energy and there's all these people and we're moving around and we have all these things, we have this ability to create forward momentum.
I agree with the part about COVID exacerbated that the lack of sense of community. I think people need to, not people need to, that's not the right way to start the sentence. I think if you reframe the way you see LA, like most things, it opens up a new world. And I think LA is not, I don't live in LA. I live in the Culver City area, and my city is like Culver City, Mar Vista, Palms, Venice, Marina del Rey, the surrounding neighborhoods. And the rest is opportunity. The rest is access to more. It's like if you are lucky enough that you can either work remote or live close to where you work or work close to where you live, then it's just opportunity. It's like, do I go every Thursday night to Silver Lake? Absolutely not. Would I do that? No. But it's there if I want to.
Yeah.
Do you think then part of the answer, we started this, I'm also not going to remember the exact words of your question at the beginning. How do we
market
LA? Is it actually not from the city down, but from the neighborhoods up? And maybe part of what you need to do is think about, when you talk about the sectors and the industries and the levers that are growing, maybe you're actually identifying opportunities within each of those by neighborhood. I don't know, but maybe Culver City becomes the healthcare. I'm saying this completely randomly, but like it's the ultimate healthcare boom. I have no idea why. Just we're in Culver-ish.
I think it's actually historically like studio.
Okay, cool. We got the studios here. Great. They'll come back here.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe Silver Lake becomes the healthcare center of Los Angeles. And I don't know why. I mean, you kind of even, I don't think it ever really took off, but whoever decided that part of Playa Vista was Silicon Beach, it's kind of the beginning of that concept, but maybe you have to intentionally build it back that way.
This isn't like, this answer is both like oversimplified. So bear with me, but the West, like the American West, has always been about frontier and opportunity. And right now in LA, that feels like you're not selling opportunity. And it's, to me, it's as simple as that. Sell the idea of opportunity in LA and build a city in service of providing opportunity. And that means attract youth, make it easier to have ideas, make it easier to build things, make it like sort of like very pro. Like, I think the thing, and this is, I'm not trying to make this a political thing, and I know it might sound a little political. I think California has been a little too concerned with protecting and not enough interested in building. And I think that's the thing that needs to change in LA if you really want to bring it back.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. California feels like France, if I'm honest.
It's just getting a little too, like, I always think the beauty of the West is like, you can come and build whatever the heck you have in your mind, sort of thing. That's always been when you mentioned optimism, right? People moved across the country because they were like, well, man, over there, I got a chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes. And I think everything's evolved. Work-life balance, all of this. I do think the component of opportunity plus quality is a mix that you don't have anywhere else.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's just been, and I think the natural reaction, and this is just human psychology. The natural reaction when you've had something really awful happen to you is you want to save the rest, right? So you had literally an entire industry get gutted post-COVID. And I think as a result, people have clenched on even harder to what's left rather than being like, okay, how do we evolve and how do we grow from here? And as a result, you get protective. You don't get ambitious.
That is very interesting. I agree. I want to know more about why LA is like France.
No, LA, California.
Oh, California.
It's it's more political and
never
fiscal.
mind.
I don't think we need to go there, but it's LA, California, like Simon just said, being like the next frontier, always about innovation, pushing the limits, innovating. Silicon Valley, Hollywood. It's not harder. It's harder to innovate here than it is in many states in the country right now.
Yeah.
Just regulations and
So I have another question, and maybe we've already answered this in other ways. But when you were first setting out the problem, one of the things I was thinking about is, so pessimism is essentially the evolution of the internal perception. But what has evolved about the external perception of LA? Because I think, even if, I'm not even pointing to tourism necessarily as the answer, though obviously it's an opportunity, but like any industry, when people from the outside, when there's conversation and interest and momentum, even on the outside, it actually creates energy and momentum and opportunity on the inside. And I don't know. I mean, I would love to go research it. I would love to talk to people, but maybe just from the people we know, since we all have people that don't live here.
I think a lot of that pessimism is coming from the narrative outside. Do you know what I mean? Like if you followed it, COVID and post-COVID, it was a lot of it. Like when I talk to people in Canada, it was a combination of what's the deal with all the homeless people? Oh my God, is your house on fire? Or, I heard a lot of people are leaving California because it's so expensive. You know what I mean? Like those are the three things I kept hearing from people in Canada.
Earthquakes.
You know what I mean? Like,
and if I want to innovate and start a company, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah. So like it was like so when you start to hear you're not that cool anymore, you get a little pessimistic. You know what I mean?
I think that's right. I think it's totally like after you hear it enough times, at some point you start to believe it, and you start to But you just said, Roman, that if I want to innovate and start a company, I'm not going to go. I'm going to go somewhere else. Yeah. So I still think the idea that innovation and opportunity is core to California, but I don't know that that's how it's being. That's the perception of it.
I think that to me is where you start.
Yeah.
This is where you start right here. Is like if you wanted to start getting LA, it's all the things I said before, not to belabor them, but like make this a great hotbed of opportunity for the young, ambitious optimists. And there's a different podcast about politically, fiscally, how you do that. But then that becomes the brand you want to hammer. Oh my God, LA Olympics are coming. You just wait and see what we do with the Olympics to show how innovative, how interesting, how crazy we are. Like, do you remember Beijing 2008?
Yeah.
As someone from Canada who didn't have much exposure to China, and you saw and you were like, wait a second, that's Beijing? Like, I had no idea that they had the most insane stadiums with this incredible coordination of, like, it was such a force of like, all right, China's on the map now. I bet you didn't know we were here, but guess what? We're here. And this to me feels like the massive opportunity with LA Olympics is like, how do you build that whole entire narrative to this real great opportunity to showcase yourselves as, oh, I bet you guys thought we were just fires and sadness and, really tough place to live. Guess what? We are the most interesting, optimistic, innovative place in the world. And you're missing out.
I buy it.
I think Simon just cracked it.
Yeah, I completely buy it.
How do you convince a friend to move to LA today?
I'll give you a good example of why exactly it's a narrative problem is when I have friends come to LA, they love it.
Yeah.
They just aren't always interested in coming in the first place. LA sells itself. Like, and I mean that. Like, that's like when I every summer, a lot of times I'm away and I'm like, hey, just take my house for a week. And a friend will come and they'll just be like, this is insane. You guys live X away from a beach. I went up a mountain the other day and then I went to a Lakers game. Like, they're just blown away by what it's like to live here.
And the culture, the history, the roots, everything. The food make it interesting.
Yeah, the food's great. Everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, it is this funny place where it's like, yeah, we're all feeling bad for ourselves and it is a bummer. But that's why I love this place, is because like totally. It is a great place.
I think the idea of a tourism campaign for a city as told by people who don't live here would be so interesting, because it's always like, this is real California and like we're, like we surf, totally. But we also hike and we do this stuff. But it would be so interesting to have it told from the opposite perspective, not only because it would be surprising but it actually would make LA feel better about itself. Like whenever, it would be an interesting way to both get tourism, but also shift the optimism of Angelenos.
Yeah. The thing I always say to people about LA is I'm like, when someone says, I don't like LA, to me, that's like saying, I don't like the Eastern Seaboard. Like, I'm like, you can't hate all of LA. It's too diverse. There's too much here. There's too many interesting things. Maybe you're not a Silver Lake person, but have you checked out Pasadena? If you haven't liked Pasadena, maybe check out Santa Monica. Like, there's a place for everyone where you're going to find something you like.
That's back to Jesse's idea, community up, I think.
Yeah.
If you see LA as a city, you see it's sprawling. It's so big. It's more than 100 miles south to north. And like, yes, it is, but no, it's not.
Yeah,
it's like London.
Yeah.
Like, people don't describe London as it's too big. You live in your areas and sometimes you have an opportunity to go somewhere else. Like, I don't know the sizes. I'm guessing LA is bigger than London, but London is huge. Like, really, really massive. Yeah. People never complain about the size of London when they say, I don't like London. It's for other reasons, usually the weather. But it's but it's true. It's like, and LA has that thing about it's too big and you got to be in your car all the time.
You got to drive all the time.
It is big, but that's opportunity. Yeah. And you're in your car. It's actually freedom.
Yeah.
But it's a reframing of everything.
And the LA traffic thing, this is a hot take. Every city in the world has caught up to LA.
100%.
With traffic.
100%. I agree with that. I used to live in Miami and it was like a breeze. And now you go to Miami and you're like, you got to spend 45 minutes in your car to change neighborhood.
100%.
To go from like Coconut Grove to Brickell at 9 a.m. is going to take you 40 minutes. You're like, what? And it's like 3 miles away. Totally. So it's
everywhere.
Every
Toronto's horrible.
Big urban area. Yeah. It's just demographics.
Well, even the not big areas.
Urbanization and demographics.
I think about where I grew up, which obviously very small town, but it still, there wasn't traffic, but there was distance.
Yeah.
Like it took you 20 minutes just to get to a grocery store.
Right.
Like there was no.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I mean, I have my own hot takes and feelings about driving, but we don't have to go there.
Your hot take is you avoid it and don't like it.
Yeah, I would never. Not only would I never do it if I didn't have to, I've actively chosen to never do it.
Exactly.
Because I don't have to. But yeah, that is true.
So what do we got to do? What do we need to figure out here?
I mean, honestly, I think there's a few really interesting subjects, and obviously you can't crack something like that tactically, but I wanted to bring this subject because I think it's juicy, and there's a few interesting buckets that came up, right? And I think you summarized it literally like a few minutes ago. I wasn't kidding. Like, you talked about find a way to bring back the youth, right? Which is in itself a big brief, right? Yeah. It's definitely related to affordable housing, but it's a big brief. Not only you make it selling the opportunity, you evolve the perception beyond entertainment. It's still about innovation and creativity, but beyond that industry. So you sell the opportunity. To me, you mix creative business, innovation, and quality of life. I think there's a thing there.
Yeah.
You go community up, per Jesse's suggestion, and you probably start with the Olympics as a big platform to say that to the world.
Yeah.
Like 5 ginormous buckets that need like a lot of time and a lot of work.
Those sound like beautiful briefs to tackle.
But interesting.
Yo, big time.
Interesting. Obviously, they're all interconnected. So, I think, did we crack it? Probably not, but obviously a lot of passion because we've all been here. And I know, Jesse, you said none of us grew up here, but LA is a city made of people who didn't grow up here.
Totally. And did we crack it? To your point, it's a lot. But I will say, on a personal note, that this conversation changed my perception of LA because I said,
well, we got one.
Yeah. Forget it. I'm not moving.
Well, we can.
Yeah, we'll revisit that. No, but my point is, I started off at some point with the question. I did at some point move from the mindset of I don't like it here to I love it here, but I couldn't articulate why, and it made me feel I think it sort of blended that pessimism with my usual optimism because I was like, I don't, am I just comfortable? Like, I don't know what it is. And I think the conversation was like very enlightening for me personally. I'm like, oh yeah. And also, fuck what everybody on the outside is saying about LA.
Totally.
Sorry, Simon. It's not a family friendly podcast, but I do think the idea of not letting that influence the optimism, not letting the outside pessimism create internal pessimism.
What made you
really
move here in the first place?
Against my will.
Really?
I mean, it was a combination of things. After I was living in Chicago, I went to work in Mexico City. I was in advertising, and working in advertising in Mexico City was way more creative than the industry in Chicago, which is really rooted in it's a very account driven market versus like a creative driven market. And
that's going to be a hot take.
Chicago creatives are about to come. And
I didn't say there weren't good creatives. I didn't say it wasn't creative. I just said that Mexico City was more creative. Sorry. I love Chicago. Come for me. I don't care. So there was that. And then, there were family reasons to move out here.
Because I would make you at the time you moved here are exactly the type of people we should be trying to attract. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly the profile of look what you've done here. You know what I mean? You went from coming here and now developing a career here and hopefully building industry here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's exactly the archetype that you're trying to go after.
Yeah. I wouldn't have met you guys.
You would have never met us. But that's
exactly.
I think that's the thing. And I think the thing is some of this stuff too. And if we had someone who was a little more familiar with cities and stuff like that here, I have a feeling they would talk about the cycle of a city. Cause I think we had a few unique things happen post-COVID and with the industry of entertainment and stuff like that specific to LA. I also wonder if we're in a certain cycle in a city cycle that is just this sort of mature market, sort of things got to shake up and hit a certain place before they can go back up again. You know what I mean?
Especially in the US, but which are more newer cities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
That's really interesting. Cycle of cities. Yeah.
Since you talked about LA having the juice, we could make the argument that Nashville has, Portland had a moment. I think Richmond is sort of now we're starting to hear whispers of.
Austin had
its moment. I bet you if we sat here we could probably think of 6 or 7
I think
more.
you can add Kansas City if you
could probably talk
Miami
yourself
had
into
a huge
Kansas.
moment
Miami
in the
had
last
a
10
massive
years.
moment.
So there's
it always happens, right? It's the way America sort of works too.
Yeah, but LA's different because it's always been it's probably the second most populous city in America.
It's a big city.
It's a big metropolis in the world. It's capital of entertainment. It needs more than a moment. It needs to live forever. It's a bigger
and you mean
deal,
in cultural importance?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the cities you mentioned, but all the ones you mentioned that I know, I love.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And the other thing we didn't touch on, and we don't necessarily need to, because I don't know that will lead us to a better plan, is there something that's mind blowing about LA, and people who know more about cities will be able to tell me, yeah, dumbass, it's America.
Yeah.
But 100 years ago, there was nothing here.
I know. It's amazing.
Like if you look at literally a map of LA, literally 100 years ago.
Yeah.
1925. There's like a few buildings in Pasadena, and then it's slowly sprawling west from there. It's insane. Like you talk to people who are like in their 70s or 80s and who spend their lives there. They're like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, everything between downtown and Santa Monica was just countryside.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's also just imagine the speed. And this is coming from a Euro dude who's lived in like a city who's like
built hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, more than 1,000 years old. And so it's insane for me to think about. It's like there was nothing here 100 years ago.
Yeah.
What the fuck's it going to look like in 100 years? Different podcast.
Futuristic.
All right, guys. I think we got it. Simon, you're going to wrap us up.
Wow, we did it. We did the thing.
Yeah, we did the thing.
All right.
Fun one.
If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for another episode, don't be afraid to reach out. Shoot us an email, hello@crackitpodcast.com. Please rate, subscribe, or follow us wherever you listen to your podcast, or just tell a friend. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time on another episode of Crack It in an Hour. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.